abortion. How are we as Christians to address the abortion issue? We already know that it's a sin issue, that it's a violation of God issue, His law issue, and therefore a gospel issue. But how do we as Christians then address that type of issue? I'd say we follow Jesus. We obey what He said to do. What did He say to do? He said many times, we're to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then we're to love our neighbors ourselves. Yes, God is number one, and we must love Him above all else. He must be our key. He must be the foundation. He must be the power of our love for our neighbors, whom we're to love as ourselves. And we must look to Paul. Paul says in Philippians 2:3 that we are to esteem others higher than ourselves. We cannot be like the Pharisee, like the priest, like the Levite. We cannot be like the person who sees our brother in need on the side of the road and abandons them for our own comfort, our own convenience, our own schedule. Folks, we must love our neighbors as ourselves. We must esteem them more important than ourselves, and that is so hard to do. But if we're a Christian, the Spirit of God is alive in us. It dwells within us. It is conforming us to the image of the Son, and therefore we have the ability to love in that way. So then you may ask in the abortion issue, who then is our neighbor? Well, obviously the baby. Obviously the baby, the thousands of them being slaughtered in the womb every day by their mothers, by paid hitmen called doctors with blood on their hands, supported by family, supported by law, supported by society. Yes, they are the most innocent, the most helpless, the most voiceless of our neighbors whom we're to love. But they're not the only ones, folks. Yes, indeed, when Jesus said to love our neighbors as ourselves, just as the Samaritan man loved on his Jewish neighbor, people who would have no dealings with each other, were they both upright and able, he went beyond what should have been the love of his neighbors, other Jews who of the same culture, the same Jewish heritage, the priest and the Levite, they abandoned their neighbor, their Jewish brother, and yet the Samaritan loved him, did what was right by him, and didn't do anything super extraordinary, only did what is required of any human being to care for another. He cared for the beaten, robbed man. We do not see an enemy in babies, yet we do see an enemy oftentimes in abortion doctors, in clinic workers, in nurses, in liberal politicians, in promoters of the abortion agenda, pro-choice advocates. We see them as enemies. But even if we do, we're to love our enemies, the Bible tells us. We are not to see them as our primary objective. We are to see principalities and powers, rulers in high places. That spiritual hosts of wickedness are our enemies, and we need to pray against them. We need to preach against them. We need to bring the gospel into conflict with this dark age, and we need to do it for all people we see, for all people, enemy or friend, are our neighbors. And we're to love them as ourselves, and we're to esteem them higher than ourselves. And that means to love them, we as Christians need to meet them where they're at. We as Christians ought to be at the abortion clinics. We ought to be there with a voice for the voiceless and for the very loud voiced, for the ones being paid blood money to do what they do. Yes, we need to love our neighbors, even those neighbors who hate us, even those neighbors who see us as enemies. We need to love them with the gospel truth. We need to show them the law of God, show them their rebellion and their breaking of God's law, and we need to give them the gospel answer to that breaking, the gospel truth of salvation in Jesus Christ through repentance and faith. We need to go and love our neighbors at the very gates of hell. We need to esteem all higher than ourselves, babies and the murderers of babies as well. We as Christians must act as Christ would have us act in loving our neighbors and bringing them the gospel. That is the love for our neighbors that they need. That is their eternal answer. That is their only hope. Not legislation, which is okay. Not programs, which are fine. No, what needs to be done primarily is the gospel needs to be brought into conflict with this Holocaust, this evil of our age, abortion. And we do it by loving our neighbors as ourselves. I pray we'd all go and do likewise. Love our neighbors for the glory of God, for the good of their souls. God bless you.